If they want to try to annihilate Ontario, I will do everything, including cut off their energy, with a smile on my face.
Canadians are reasonable, and we are polite, but we will not back down from a fight.
Canada is retaliating after Donald Trump has launched a pointless trade war that is only going to end up hurting both American and Canadian families. So let me break this down with some highlights, including the fact that an Elon Musk company's contract is getting canceled. A $100 million contract is no more. But let's first start with how this began yesterday. And that is when Trump began to announce that the tariffs were going to happen today. The stocks tanked immediately. And in fact, you can watch that happen live as he is talking about how strong America is going to be with him. You can see in the bottom corner here, as the caption writes, Fox News displays a widget showing the U.S. stock market crashing in real time as President Trump delivers speech on imposing tariffs on American allies. So check out the number as he's talking here.
The United States has been taken advantage of for 40 years. The United States has been a laughingstock for years and years. That's why this gentleman is built in Taiwan instead of building here. It would have been better if he built here. If we had a president that knew what they were doing, and we had a lot of them very bad on trade.
Yeah, laughingstock. Unlike now, right, where there is so much respect for America. If you talk to any Canadian, the respect that Canadians have for the U.S. and Americans now is at the lowest it has ever been. To vote for this man a second time after he was a disaster the first time. How can you possibly expect Canadians to respect you more when this is the kind of action you are taking against your friend, your neighbor? So it's universal, by the way. It isn't just Canada. I did a video on this a few weeks ago. Recent data showing respect around the world has dropped immeasurably since Trump has come in and just taken a wrecking ball to both Americans and the state of the world. But this gets to a point worth noting here. S&P 500 erases entire gain since November election, wiping out $3.4 trillion in value. So already off to a good start. Now, Trump, before I get to Canada's response, Trump is blaming these tariffs on a variety of things. So, fentanyl, I'll get to how ridiculous that is in a second here. But also, he took shots at Canada here over banks, saying Canada doesn't allow American banks to do business in Canada, but their banks flood the American market. Oh, that seems fair to me, doesn't it? Which is so ridiculous. As Michael Kempa points out here, fact check, American banks have chosen to do limited business in our country because of the robust regulatory system, which makes it more difficult to engage in predatory financial services. Why, after witnessing 2008, why would Canada want a banking system that is more American? Like, Canada got through the '08 financial crisis arguably better than anybody, or at least the vast majority. Why would we want to become less protected, more American after seeing the disaster that the banking industry wrought on American families? Just wild. Now, the other thing I mentioned earlier, he is using fentanyl to justify tariffs. As the Globe Mail points out here, White House using misleading fentanyl data to justify tariffs. So this is a recent article, but you can go back. When he began using this line, like, I don't know how, I saw a Republican representative on, I think it was CNN today, using this point again. Oh, these tariffs are coming in because fentanyl. Canada is sending dangerous fentanyl over the border. Canada makes up just 0.2% of U.S. border fentanyl seizures. And this was before the extra measures that Canada put in place over the past month, brought in a fentanyl czar, added border security. They brought this number down by 97%. So it's now like 0.01% or something. Like, it's just so insane to use this as anything, especially considering the level of weapons and drugs that come from the US into Canada. If you're going to use this as a measurement or as the reason to start a trade war, Canada should have started a trade war decades ago because of the amount of garbage that comes over the border from the US. But it's an insane point to use to force all these extra charges on American families. So let me start with the response from Ontario Premier Doug Ford. So this was from yesterday before the tariffs hit, but it's the same points he's making today. I'm going to reiterate that with a couple of headlines in a second. But this is, I got to say, I like this response. I did a video on Doug Ford winning. I'm not a fan of Doug Ford for obvious reasons. He's not great on healthcare, not great on many domestic issues. But when it comes to the way he is talking here, his approach to this, I am in full support.
You have two choices here, folks. We roll over as a country and just let them run over us, or we fight like hell, like we've never fought before. I'm taking option two. I'm fighting like hell, and we're going to protect Canada. He's underestimating the Canadian people, the resilience of the Canadian people, and the strength of the Canadian people. I don't start a tariff war, but we're going to win this tariff war. Right off the hop, I've directed the LCBO, we're the largest purchaser of alcohol in the world, to remove every bit of U.S. alcohol off the shelves. I know my good friend, the governor of Kentucky, he's losing his mind right now. I said, you better talk to your president. Mitch McConnell, senior senator from Kentucky, they're losing their mind. We purchased over $1 billion of alcohol, 3,600 products, 35 states. It's going to hit them. We would call them the kitchen table issues. Then we're going to cancel Starlinks right away from Elon Musk. Not that $100 million makes a difference for them, but it's principle. I've directed the procurement of over $30 billion of goods, not to go to the U.S., to make sure we buy Ontario first. And if we can't find it in Ontario and we can't build it in Ontario, we go across the country. We have 51 tariff-free agreements with countries around the world. Every retail store, when you go look at the shelf talker, it has the price. We need to see a Canadian flag on that price. If they want to try to annihilate Ontario, I will do everything, including cut off their energy, with a smile on my face. So, and I'm encouraging every other province to do the same.
That last line there is fantastic. Other politicians that are better than him on the actual policies and issues should take note at how to communicate with voters. This is why Doug Ford is still popular, despite the fact that he has done a number on Ontario in regards to wages that he canceled an increase on, in regards to healthcare, in regards to lying about not giving up the Greenbelt to his corporate buddies. Like, there's a whole litany of scandals and issues that Doug Ford's been involved in that I've done many videos on. But I can acknowledge that the guy knows how to communicate with your average person. This is fantastic. A great response here. The encouragement, a lot of this was touched on, a month ago when we were first discussing the tariffs, but taking American products off the shelves, fantastic. In terms of energy, there actually is more specifics now on that. So Richard Sutherland of City News reporting, Ford tells the Wall Street Journal that Ontario will put a 25% export tax on the electricity it sends to 1.5 million homes in Minnesota, Michigan, and New York. Ford added that he will direct the province's energy producers to shut down the exports entirely if Trump moves ahead with even more tariffs on April 2nd. And canceling the Starlink deal. For real this time, I think, because he said it the first time, and then a day later he reverted when the tariffs didn't happen. Now he's saying it again. I hope it's legit this time. Even if the tariffs didn't happen, this deal was insane. And I went through that in a different video, so I'm not going to break that all down now. But it would have been wild to give Elon Musk $100 million when there are other options to deliver internet to these more remote parts in Ontario. But really good to see the ripping up of that deal. I want to get now to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's response.
Canadians are reasonable, and we are polite, but we will not back down from a fight. Not when our country and the well-being of everyone in it is at stake. At the moment, the U.S. tariffs came into effect in the early hours of this morning, and so did the Canadian response. Canada will be implementing 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods, starting with tariffs on $30 billion worth of goods immediately, and tariffs on the remaining $125 billion of American products in 21 days' time. I want to speak first directly to the American people. We don't want this. We want to work with you as a friend and ally. And we don't want to see you hurt either. But your government has chosen to do this to you. As of this morning, markets are down, and inflation is set to rise dramatically all across your country. Your government has chosen to put American jobs at risk, at the thousands of workplaces that succeed because of materials from Canada or because of consumers in Canada, or both. They've chosen to raise costs for American consumers on everyday essential items like groceries and gas, on major purchases like cars and homes, and everything in between. They've chosen to harm American national security, impeding access to the abundant critical minerals, energy, building materials, and fertilizers that we have and that the United States needs to grow and prosper. They've chosen to launch a trade war that will, first and foremost, harm American families.
So just on the speech alone, I got to say it is one of Trudeau's best speeches, and he's not prime minister for much longer, as there is a leadership race going on within the Liberal Party. A new prime minister or new leader of that party, thus new prime minister, is going to come in shortly here. But there's a lot in this speech. I put in a bit here. I'm going to get to another clip later on that touches on a bit of a different point. But on the point of the retaliatory tariffs, a lot of this was already mentioned by the government before they were brought in, so people were already aware what was going to happen. But this, how long this trade war lasts is going to depend completely on how much Trump cares about how Americans are impacted, which is probably very little. So it's really going to come down to how much of that is going to hurt Trump's image. So if Trump feels like he's not able to put enough propaganda out there to combat the fact that this is really going to hurt Americans, then there may be some backpedaling on these tariffs. But I think right now, I would love to think that these tariffs are going to last, a couple of days. I don't feel like that's the case. I think this is something that the Trump administration is sort of they just want to do. And the excuses they use, whether it's fentanyl, whether it's, American banks aren't in Canada or whatever the garbage he's bringing up. Like, none of this makes any sense. This is simply something that he wants to do. These tariffs are something that he already wants to do. And he's looking for justification, for the media, but there is no justification for it. And they're going to sit and wait to see what happens in the wake of it. And if it's going to hurt his image in a big way with Americans, then maybe there's some changes. But for now, I think they're going to stay in place. On that point, Adam Cochran wrote this on Twitter, and I discovered that he also has a YouTube channel, so I will plug that as well. Check out Adam Cochran on YouTube. But he goes on to write, Canadians are done with Trump shit. Instead of backing down, they've settled on $155 billion of retaliatory tariffs on the same day they've asked the UK for nuclear guarantees against the US. And here's the critical part. Most Canadian imports to the US are raw materials at preferred prices that the US doesn't have other sources for. Most U.S. exports to Canada are finished products that Canada has other sources for, even if less preferred. U.S. oil refining is 100% reliant on Canadian processing minerals. U.S. fertilizer, and thus U.S. farming, is reliant on Canadian minerals and potash. When it comes to trade, the unique relationship between Canada and the U.S. means Canada can punch far above its weight in how its tariffs impact America. You'd rather have $20 of generic Chinese tariffs than $1 of targeted Canadian ones. If Trump doesn't back down on this, Canada can continue to tighten the screws. And honestly, the political will of Canadians united in hatred of this moment and not wanting to be pushed around suggests that Canada's population is far less likely to blink first when compared to a divided, exhausted, and price gouged American population. In wars, we talk about the defender benefit. In trade wars, that holds true as well. Having something worth fighting for and a unified hate of a common enemy is a powerful thing. And I have seen that. And that gets to the next Trudeau clip where, to my surprise, he brings up the booing of the American national anthem. And he seems to continue encouraging it, or at least not necessarily encouraging it, but not criticizing it. And this goes to how Canadians are feeling.
Canadians are not angry at the American people for this. We don't have anything against Americans. Americans are our neighbors, our friends, our partners. We do things together. We've done things together for decades and generations. This is a policy decision by the American government designed to go after the Canadian economy. This is a trade war, yes. But Canadians are hurt. Canadians are angry. We're going to choose to not go on vacation in Florida or Old Orchard Beach or wherever. We're going to choose to try to buy Canadian products and forego bourbon and other classic American products. And yeah, we're probably going to keep booing the American anthem. But let me tell Americans, we're not booing you. We're not booing your teams. We're not booing your players. We're booing a policy that is designed to hurt us. And we're insulted. And we're angry. But we're Canadian, which means we're going to stand up for each other. We're going to fight. And we're going to win.
Pretty good message for him to end on there. And understand, if you're feeling anxious, as I am, Canadians out there feeling anxious about all of this, focus on what you can control. Focus on yourself, focus on your family, focus on friends, local community. Don't get too lost in stuff you have no control over. You know, a tariff war, national policy. Focus on things that you can control. And if anyone in your life, anyone you know, may be impacted by this, by these tariffs, maybe losing their job over it, reach out to them, see how they're doing, see how you may be able to help them. Like, there are ways that we can impact positively in our own lives, in our own community, within our own family. And I think it's important for us to focus on that in this time. I'm seeing a national pride with Canadians that I've never in my life experienced in a real way. You know, we've seen, I don't want to bring them up, but we've seen the a version of this, not necessarily an honest version of this, but in the past. But this is real national pride, a real unity that I have never really experienced as a Canadian. We are going to get through this and understand that what is happening right now is temporary. What is happening right now is not necessarily what's going to happen for infinity. So focus on yourself, focus on things that you can control. We are going to get through this.